Hi, my name's Andy Reeher. I'm the CEO at Brighton Science, and I'm very happy to be here with Molly Kellogg, who's the CEO at Hubbard-Hall. Molly and I have known each other for a couple of years now.
Yep.
And have had a great set of conversations about leading companies. I think one of the exciting things about our discussions is that Molly's in a company that I think would classify as an extremely successful, mature company, 6 generations of family ownership, and serves a set of customers who also who are in a very mature kind of industry. Whereas my background obviously started in a manufacturing company, but the last 20 years of my career have been in software and at Brighton Science. And so a lot of that has been high growth and very dynamic, and a lot of change and a lot of different things that are happening. And both of us have talked a lot about what it's like to lead companies and also what it's like to work with customers that are also dealing with change. So thought we'd talk about leadership and change today, and see what we might share. I've certainly learned a lot from my conversations with you. Maybe we could start with Hubard Hall's value proposition. So why would someone choose to work with Hubard Hall? But first of all, describe what Hubard Hall does.
Yeah, so Hubard Hall, I'm a 6th generation CEO in the business, and we go back, next year will be our 175th anniversary.
Wow.
And yes, we are, so that qualifies us as mature.
Mature.
And I don't know if dynamic, we started back in the 1800s as an apothecary and fertilizer distributor, and now today we manufacture specialty chemicals for metal finishing, for surface finishing. So we are a distributor, we are a specialty blender, serving almost the same thing that we did 175 years ago, the local economy and local manufacturers. It used to be farmers, and now it's metal finishers. And what's our value prop? We're a small business, we're a family-owned business. I don't think it's changed all that much. We go to market as customer intimate. So when we add value to our customers, we're getting deep into their processes, we're getting our people tank side so that when they've got problems, we can solve them. So describing our business to people who don't know chemistry, we're like a supermarket. Why would someone choose us? We're not Walmart. We're still that neighborhood hardware store. If it's not Lowe's, it's the neighborhood hardware store. And we will be there to help you improve your process. So, and we'll talk about the vision part later, but I think we offer a level of expertise with very common products, and that's why people buy from us and come back to us and trust us.
Yeah, I've one of the things that struck me in all of our conversations is this: how intentional you are about thinking about how you're going to serve your customers. It's a very thoughtful group. You've got a very thoughtful team, and I tend to think of a company that is that old as already being in a set of grooves, but there's a certain amount of restlessness as you think about what you want to do. I really admire that.
Yeah. Well, and from our conversations and meeting your team, I think our DNA is pretty similar. I mean, your crew of scientists are committed to the same thing. You're working with people who are making things and helping them make it better. So that's different stages in our corporate life cycles, but I think a similar swing thought as we go to market. Yeah,
it's extremely it's very interesting to be doing what we're doing. I think it is a function of Giles Dillingham's innovation with the development of our surface analyst. We have this unique ability to measure cleanliness, which brought us into the world of what you do and automotive and aerospace and consumer electronics and consumer products. Lots of places where people want to know if a surface is ready to be bonded. But I think one of the things that we've realized is the value of the data in helping the organizations change, and that knowing a thing, especially in big complicated organizations, is not the same as doing a thing.
Right.
That one person can have an insight, but it doesn't permeate, it doesn't head off the problem in all the places it could occur. And so, we talk about this in our team. I mean, part of our company is, one half of it's periodic table and one half of it's Harvard Business Review.
Yeah.
How does a company organize to communicate, to share incentives, to keep everybody on the same page? And when I look at what we're doing, I think we want to bring those two things together. I think there's, education's always been a big part of our DNA. It's where Giles comes from. It's where our scientists come from. And when we're introducing customers to our technology, we're often teaching them something and then they take it and run, which is why we end up with so many wide-ranging applications. And for me, as a guy who hadn't been in manufacturing for 20 years, it's like having a backroom ticket, backstage ticket to see these insides of these great companies. Walk down these assembly lines where they're assembling these fighter jets, or a production line for automotive, or watching what's happening with pharmaceuticals, or brands you see on the shelf. It just is it's extremely energizing for us and our team. And also the problems our customers are working on are extremely exciting. The challenges are huge for sustainability, for supply chain, for digital transformation. And it's, for us, I'd say the key for us is focus. How do we focus on making the biggest impact for our customer rather than, simply playing at the edges of all the stuff that's new and fun?
Yeah. And I think about where the Brighton technology is playing, and it's showing the change in manufacturing. So, traditional manufacturing world, you have a plant somewhere and you make parts and then you ship them out. But as manufacturing production becomes more modular and you need to have instrumentation on site to be able to quick change it. I mean, so we're going from a very old legacy production model to what can you make in discrete locations, verify that it's going to work, and then put it into play. So it's the nature of manufacturing is changing, and that's, you look at the technology that you've got, it's enabling that to happen more quickly, I think.
Yeah, no, it's true, and there's always some impatience. How do we make it better? I think certainly, I know you and I both think about our companies a lot, and how do we make our companies everything we hope they would be. And then when we talk to customers, because I know both you and I have a lot of customer face time, also have to help our customer understand some things that are possible.
Right.
If their goal is obviously improving profit, certainly if it's improving sustainability, if it's managing an acquisition or moving, changing supply chains, there are a lot of ways we could help if we're in a good consultative mode. But there's some part of helping the other CEO or the other president see the change,
right,
and get it into their organization. Because I know we've talked about this, but just bringing in the idea as the leader sometimes kills the idea.
Exactly. You come up with a new idea. We've used the term antibody. So as I come roaring through the door with yet another new idea, I can imagine the reaction of my team saying, "Oh my gosh, not again!"
No.
and so how do we look at, as we're introducing, whether it's new technology or new products or new ways of doing business, how do we make sure that we can, I hate to use the word vision, but express our vision, have it understood, have it adopted, and then hopefully permeate through the company. And again, you as a newer company, I think there's a great opportunity there. I've got an older company where we're always trying to affect change, but we go different rates.
Mm-hmm. Well, because the thing that ends up happening, you can have a logo, you can have a tagline, you can have your company vision slide and your culture statement, but if everybody in the company has to understand it and then figure out, how do I represent that to the outside, to my vendors? How do I represent that? How do I become that?
Yeah.
Because there's also, especially in mature companies, there's a tacit way things get done.
Yep.
And leadership may change, but there's sort of a way things happen around here. And they're always, when you need to get this done, you always need to go see her. And there's this grizzled guy who really understands how to mix things, or he or she is the one that makes something happen. And that's really what the company is. I mean, as the leader, you got to be, I think, pretty humble about how do we keep everybody in the same place? How do we listen well, right, and then teach well? Right. I think it's getting those our folks in those modes.
Yeah. And how do you honor tradition, and how do you honor years of expertise and experience and then start thinking about a different way to do things or adopting different technologies. And I think back to a conversation I had with a chief technology officer of probably a Fortune 100 company, and going through the same thing. They're a tool manufacturer, and how do you innovate within an established company? And they take the skunkworks approach. They have an arm of their company just trying to put their existing company out of business, and they have to be separate by design, because the people who are running the ship, right? They can't build a submarine to attack you, and you've got to set that up a little bit, that dynamic.
And it's a challenge because even inside of a company like that, some of the people who are left with the running the big ship sometimes end up resenting the skunkworks team, and the skunkworks team may feel under-resourced or starved.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to get right. I think that term, I had a conversation just recently with the man who leads R&D for a major global company that makes consumer products, and it was the first time I ever heard the term, when a new idea comes in, antibodies emerge, and you think about where in the company will the resistance be to the new idea.
Yeah.
And as a leader, trying to figure out how do I nurture that, and also am I resourcing it sufficiently, but also paying attention to my existing customers. So
right.
I think that's a challenge. I would say one of the things that I've learned along the way, because I guess I have been at this a while, is how important it is to have data in the conversation, to have a realistic assessment of perhaps market conditions or market segments or where the opportunities are, because ultimately data helps people change their minds. Data ends debate, as another old phrase that I come back to a lot. Because ultimately, when we think about our companies or our customers, the way people behave is based on what they believe,
right.
and data is what drives beliefs. And
right.
so the people that are the tacit process, they also need to see the data, and we owe it to them to be able to do that. And I think when we're explaining that to customers, as we're trying to take our companies in a new direction, we have to explain to our customers, well, where are you going?
Right.
I thought this was who your company was. And why are you doing that?
Right.
And for people who count on us, and like in the case of Brighton Science, they count on us to be the company we were. So we need to be that company, and then we need to also unlock a new capability that is there. So we have to bring customers along on that journey as well.
Yeah, and I think the data concept is important. So you talk about one half periodic table, one half Harvard Business Review. I was thinking that there may be a third element, or at least there is in our customers. There's, I don't know if you call it the Picasso aspect. So you have how you do things, how you lead change, and then the art behind it all. And I think data can be hopefully that bridge. You've got objective information that can talk about a result, can talk about a process, and that can help break through maybe resistance to change.
Yeah, that's where it's good to be a really intuitive leader. I'd say that's probably a flaw I have. I do think having that flexibility, having that being able to surf that culture and sense that culture. I think for some of us I have to be really conscious of the fact that people aren't all at the same place. It's not all obvious. In my family, there's a saying that my daughters play back a lot from their childhood: "Feedback is a gift, dear."
Yeah.
And so sometimes too much feedback can be destructive, and also we have to be open as leaders. We have to be open to feedback.
Well, I think that's key in that. So yes, we're creating antibodies with new ideas. There is a purpose to antibodies, right? And we've got to be able to accept that. And again, I think as leaders, we can say we want feedback, we can think we're approachable, but we're not going to be told everything that we need to know.
Right.
So it's our job to go back out there and ask what's happening.
Right.
And the other thing I think about in leading change or working with customers, any kind of new idea, getting a clear definition of terms. And it's a shortcut. It's a mistake that I make at times where I think we're speaking the same language. And my favorite analogy of this is, I say, Andy, go get me a big box. And I'm like, this is the big box I want. And you've heard big box, and you come back and say, Molly, here's your big box. And it's a very simple language, yet we haven't understood each other. And so the ability to define terms or redefine terms quickly, know when you've gone down a wrong path with the best intentions, and then wind it back up and start all over.
Well, and I think certainly in our business, and I'd say in software in general, it's characterized by iteration.
Yeah.
And so going in, understanding what we expect is going to happen in a situation, and then learning from it, and then quickly iterating. So our software team, we're doing new releases of software every few days right now, and we're, as we're enhancing our products, we're adding those capabilities all the time. So we're able to kind of find our way there.
Yeah.
But I think as we work with our customers in this, it's also understanding which kinds of change are acceptable,
right,
under which circumstances and welcome, and which kinds of changes are disruptive. And so I think for us, being in software, in manufacturing, that's going to be an important thing for us to learn. And we need to. That's why our sales team is so important in terms of really listening to what customers are telling us, because that's our signal. That's our signal back from the market. And the reason we want to do great discovery, and the reason we want to stay close to our customers, is to be able to learn, how do we help. I think we know a thing often that they need to know, they don't know yet,
right,
and we need to do that humbly. But also we need to learn what we were wrong about,
right,
and then press forward. But I think we are, in our case, in what we're doing, we talk about it. There's a missionary component of what we're doing. We're teaching them something that they didn't know was possible, which was, how do you measure surface energy and out in the wild, airstrips and hanging upside down, or curved surfaces, or headlamps, or whatever. And we can do that, and that hasn't been possible before. And we can generate a number that isn't as subjective as dyne.
right,
And then that data can become something that can connect programs, products, plants, production lines. So it makes that much more valuable to unlock cost reductions, quality improvements, improving sustainability. But every customer situation, especially family-owned businesses, there's a lot riding on it, and they want that help. There's a way to help them, but we have to be able to be a partner in that conversation.
Yeah, and data becomes the common language, hopefully, through that. And where you're working with very high-tech applications now in our customer base, there's anywhere along the manufacturing spectrum, we can have high-tech applications to people making tops of swell bottles, but the need is still the same, and the ability to measure cleanliness objectively, and then you get all the attendant results. So fewer rework, better quality, less cost. And you and I have talked about this as I think about our company at 174 years old, and what hesitating to use the word vision is. My vision is to help our customers use less chemistry, and it's counterintuitive, because that's what we do. We sell chemicals, we get paid on volume. But I think about what it means to be an evergreen business, a goal of getting it on to generation number 7, and this notion, and we talked about this in many different ways, that you've got to leave behind a world that's better than what you did. So when people are making that airplane engine, they're using chemistry they don't want to use. No one wants to use it. They have to. So I think then we have an obligation, or my company does, to say, okay, we're going to help you use less. We're going to make your process better. We're going to give you data. You're going to use less chemistry, you're going to use less waste, and then if that permeates through the whole supply chain process, then we've done a good thing. I don't know how we're going to make money at it, and this is what I get a lot of antibodies when I say that, because what do you mean? You're a chemical company, you want to use less chemistry. But with the technology that Brighton has, there's a real ability to do that. So again, we're moving from just sort of, cleanliness measured on, I look at it or I wipe a glove, to we can measure it, and then we can make good decisions based on that and really start an improvement process.
Well, there's certainly, these days, there's a lot to be worried about in the news. There's a lot of pessimism. There's a lot of anxiety about the future. I think one of the most exciting things, and every time I have to go home and talk to my family about what we do here, I talk about the optimism, the energy that comes from all the engineers we talk to, and all the people that are solving all these problems, because there's problems solved everywhere, every day, and it makes me really optimistic about the future. And I think when we think about sustainability, we think about quality of life, we think about people's longevity, we think about what's possible technically. I believe that this kind of creativity will improve the quality of life, and is a lot to be excited about. I'd love us to be able to share that more with people. I think it would maybe reduce a little of the anxiety that comes from the 24-hour news and social media. So it makes me grateful to be here. It makes me grateful to have relationships with people like you and companies like yours. And I'm really, again, I'm delighted to be able to have the conversation with you about this today. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Andy.